When you've eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. You're being haunted. Lockdown came, and now you've got a poltergeist. The governor appeared at the podium, and rather than the usual excited cries from the reporters and the blinding flashes from the photographers, there was only an eerie silence and stillness on the screen. I watched, heart thudding hard and heavy against my chest. It was silly, and I tried to calm myself down. But this is where the whole world changes, I thought to myself. The governor even looked solemn, not wanting to look at the cameras, into the homes of millions who were about to have their lives shut down, and say what he had to. This wasn't politics. This was above politics, and that's what makes it scary as hell. The governor shuffled some papers on top of the podium, and then cleared his throat before finally looking into the cameras. As soon as he opened his mouth to start talking, my phone started buzzing on the sofa beside me, and I picked it up and answered it quickly. "Yep," I whispered. "Kaitlyn?" "Yep, Mom, it's me." "Why are you whispering? Is something happening?" I tried to hold back a laugh, largely unsuccessfully. Mom is always paranoid when it comes to me. I'd only moved out of home and got my own place a year ago, and she's always convinced something bad is going to happen. "No, Mom," I sighed through my laughter. "I'm trying to listen to the news." "Oh, hang on. I'll put it on too." I heard her fumbling around, probably looking for the remote, before the TV blared into life from her end of the line too. I focused back on the governor, who had found his stride while I'd been distracted by my mother's phone call. "So in short, my request is simple. Stay at home," he said, and my heart thrummed in my chest. "Okay, that's okay," I tried to tell myself. "Apart from the reasons I have outlined, an emergency and gathering essential supplies, you must stay at home. Your own home. No mingling with family and friends. This virus is the enemy, and it is invisible, which is precisely what makes it dangerous. We must limit its spread by bunkering down and hiding ourselves, and attempt to squeeze it out of our society." "Kaitlyn?" My mom's voice cut back in. "Yep," I replied, trying to sound casual. I didn't want her to know anything was wrong. And nothing was wrong, really, I suppose. It's just indoors, with pretty much no human contact, for God knows how long. I didn't mean to sound selfish. I know there will be thousands, hell, millions of people feeling the same as me, but it will certainly be a test to see how, and even if, we can cope. "How do you feel about this?" she asked. "I mean, I have your dad, but, you know." "You're by yourself," is what she wanted to say, and it was the truth. There was no shame in it. "I'll be okay," I lied. "I'll still be able to shop, and maybe we all can start having, Zoom calls and stuff. Quizzes and whatever else." These thoughts came flooding into my head as I was speaking, and suddenly, it didn't seem so bad. With technology being what it is these days, even if it did have to be virtual. It wouldn't be the same, sure, but it was better than nothing, and would hopefully keep me sane. "Oh, good thinking," she exclaimed. "I'll get in touch with the others and we'll have to set something up." The others, of course, meaning my siblings, and no doubt various aunties and uncles, of whom I'd lost track of, who was related or not. Perhaps you're beginning to understand now why months upon months of being locked down by myself sounded incredibly difficult. "Hopefully this doesn't last too long," Mom said. We chatted a bit longer about what sorts of things we might be able to do during this lockdown, before she finally said goodbye and hung up. The next few days were okay. I wasn't at work, which is of course always a bonus, especially when you're getting most of your salary, and surprisingly, I was finding plenty of things to do in order to fill the time. We had our family quiz once a week, and I also set up a weekly call with some friends of mine. And we always said we were going to quiz, but ended up just chatting and gossiping instead. The quiz only became necessary if we ran out of things to talk about. We were in lockdown after all. Not an awful lot was happening. I went shopping once a week too. That turned into a nightmare with all of the social distancing rules that were in place and people running around panic buying like they were stocking up for the next decade in lockdown. I mean, even I knew it was not going to last that long. Nowhere near it. Some people just need to use their brains more. Anyway, it was after one of these nightmare shopping trips that this weird thing started to happen. We'd been in lockdown for a little over 2 weeks, and I returned home to find my door was unlocked and there was a steaming hot cup of coffee on the kitchen counter. Now, I was certain I'd locked the door, but I'm sure all of us could say we've had at least one instance in our lives where we are absolutely positive we did something, only to find we didn't. But that cup of coffee... No, that was definitely not mine. Even if I had made myself one and had forgotten, which I hadn't, I'm not that forgetful. How could it still be hot after my over an hour-long shopping trip? I racked my brain for possible explanations, and in a normal world, the answer would be simple. My mom was the only other person with a key to my house, and so she had popped around to see me, realized I wasn't in, and made herself a cup of coffee while she waited for me to get back. But we were in lockdown, and from the conversation we had, I knew my mom wasn't going to be so foolish as to break the rules and come around for a quick drink and a chat. She'd no doubt been thinking more about my health than her own. Such is her worry over me, and so I knew she definitely wouldn't have come. That's when the thought hit me. If I had absent-mindedly left the door open, then anyone could have walked in. Okay, so that was an entirely plausible explanation, but again, who would be walking around just trying doors during lockdown? Police presence was increased, and pretty much everyone was home, so they'd have been noticed pretty quickly. And even weirder than that, why would they have made themselves a hot drink as soon as they got into the house? Hot. It was still hot, which meant it hadn't been poured very long ago. I dumped my shopping bags down in the hall and grabbed my phone from my pocket, ready to dial the police. But first, I had to be certain. "Hello," I shouted, and waited. There was a silence, and I could hear nothing. Nothing at all. Not even cars outside, or people talking outside, because everyone was in their homes. Okay, so that probably meant there was nobody inside the house, right? All that silence, and I could hear nothing. So just who exactly made themselves a drink while I was out, having to abandon it because they heard me coming back? I rang my mom, my siblings, my friends, asking if they'd stopped by. That I had a bag of shopping dropped off on my front doorstep and just wondered who I had to thank for it. And of course, when all of them said it wasn't them who'd done it, I just made things up even more, telling my friends it must have been my mom, telling my mom it must have been my friends, and so on. God knows I didn't need my mom out of everyone panicking about someone skulking around inside my house with everything else that was going on. She'd drive herself insane with worry and panic. All the while I was on the phone, I was going from room to room of the house, looking to see if anyone had run and hidden themselves away. My thinking was that if anyone had, and they had decided to jump out and attack me or whatever, then whoever was on the other end of the phone would instantly call the police and everything would be okay. As it turned out, nobody did. The rest of the house was empty. So then, who on earth made themselves a cup of coffee in my kitchen while I'd been out? Could it be a prank? Possibly, but again, who would risk such a thing during such a turbulent time? I had to put it from my mind. What else could I do? If I called the police, God, it sounded ridiculous even thinking about it. They had much bigger problems on their hands at the moment. Just because a phantom mug of coffee had appeared in my kitchen. I tipped the drink away, placed the mug in the sink, and put my shopping away, trying my best to cast the episode from my mind. I went about the rest of my day as normal, watched some TV, read a little, had a quick virtual call with my friends, and then went to bed. The next day, I woke early. It was hard to sleep in lockdown, with very little stimulating activity during the day, physical or mental. It was difficult to become tired, and so very little sleep was needed. and my body had its own way of telling me that by making me stay up late and get up early. Plus, summer was right around the corner, and the heat was starting to become insufferable already. Walking through the kitchen to put the kettle on, I noticed that the mug that held the phantom coffee inside it yesterday was on the drying rack. Had I washed it? I couldn't remember, although I'm fairly certain I only placed it in the sink. I shook my head as though to rid it of the bad thoughts, although one thought stayed, chained itself to my mind, and was screaming inside my head, "You're being haunted. Lockdown came, and now you've got a poltergeist." That thought was ridiculous and almost enough to make me laugh. But what was it I had read only the other day as part of my lockdown reading? When you've eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. Okay, haunted, fine. I've got a ghost. I suppose it was the company I wished for at the start of lockdown. And now I've got it. Be careful what you wish for, right? Except what was I supposed to do now? Call in a priest to exorcise the house of its demons? Those dudes are always ancient and are no doubt having to self-isolate lest they catch a virus and be struck down. I laughed to myself and rubbed my eyes. I walked into the living room, leaving the kettle to boil, leaned over my desk, and booted the computer up, going straight onto Zoom and initiating a call with my group of friends. A couple of them ought to be up, if not all of them. We talked about how difficult we were finding it to sleep during the lockdown. A couple answered and came straight on. "Kaitlyn, what's up?" One was in her bed using her phone. "Morning, ladies." The other was also at her desk. "Morning, all," I said. "Can't sleep again, and I think I've got a ghost or something." I laughed nervously, and then sat down at the desk, and felt the warmth of the seat beneath me. The voices of the other two became distant, muffled, as though they were speaking at a wall between me and them. Why was the seat so warm? And yet, despite the millions of thoughts buzzing in my head like a hive of bees, one comment from my friend made its way through, a mere hint of concern in the voice. "Kaitlyn, who's that behind you?" I looked at my screen, just in time to see a figure, standing behind me, reaching towards me.